ring.
There will be a substantial reward for the one who finds the Millennium Falcon. You are free to use any methods necessary, but I want them alive. No disintegration.
It's not fair.
Got something jammed in here real good. Were you on a Star Cruiser? What is that?
But these are my friends.
That way.
Yeah. I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
Oh, that wacky Star Wars. Come on, let's start this thing. Go, go, go!
Ladies and Wookiees, welcome to Cordkillers, our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so that you can watch what you want, when you want, where you want, on any device you please. Hi, I'm Tom Merritt.
Hello, Tom Merritt. I'm Brian Brushwood, and if I'm not mistaken, that was not Guardians of the Galaxy, but a recut of the Star Wars. I don't know why. It's my weakness, Tom. I keep going back to those recuts. You'd think that I'd be mature enough to not go back again and again.
Well, the slapstick brilliance of Star Wars never was more apparent.
Fair enough. Yeah, that thing was blowing up. A whole bunch of people suggested to us this week, but none of that is as exciting as our special guest this week, Tom.
Mr. Lamar Wilson has joined us. He is like all the best moments of Star Wars wrapped up into one human being.
I have never seen Star Wars in my... No, I have.
Wow.
I hate Star Wars, Tom. That was an insult.
Or a worse part to say, I actually like the sequels.
Okay, that is offensive. And that's fine. Look, that's Andy's out. That was a great guest appearance by Lamar Wilson. Hope you enjoyed it while I was there.
The Jar Jar. No. All right, let's get this show on the road with our primary target.
Yeah.
So Netflix has announced another new original programming show. That's not really news anymore. We announce those all the time these days, kind of a new era. But this one's a little different. They're going to have current late-night talk show host Chelsea Handler, who has a show on the E! Network, do a late-night talk show style show on Netflix starting in 2016. Her last episode on E! will be August 26th of this year. Next year, 2015, Netflix will release a comedy special starring Chelsea plus 4 mini mockumentaries. And then in 2016, she'll do a talk show that you can watch whatever time of day you want because it's Netflix.
Well, so here's the thing is the big question in some of the articles that we found was traditionally they do this, burst of releasing everything at once. And the question is there going to be some kind of variation of that with this show? And would that make sense in a talk show format, especially if it, is coming on the heels of her daily show? I wonder, first of all, how much of this decision is they did it because they could, because she stopped with E! She's a hot property. And even though it's not necessarily a fit, maybe somebody is like, well, let's keep tinkering and trying and try it. Or it could be, if they're doing it on purpose, part of a bigger strategy, in which case it would be fascinating to see how content is delivered. One thing that Netflix has done very well is learn the type of shows you like and make suggestions as they come in, and they tend to be right. What if it just sort of watched and was like, hey, there's a new Chelsea Handler, and imagine it gets to a level of sophistication where they're like, we know that you don't always watch Chelsea Handler, but this week George Lucas is on, so we think you're going to like it. And it sort of serves these to you, and by your behaviors of whether or not you click or watch continues to evolve, because the algorithm's fairly good as far as predicting how much you're going to like something.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this, and I'm trying to figure out, well, first of all, is it going to be timely, like up-to-date news, or would it be like a show where she could just talk about general news for the week and they just upload it? That's the first question, and then it's just starting to feel a little bit like Hulu, in a sense. It's like Netflix is getting into their territory of being able to do quick on-demand things, which I think is great. I'm interested in the motivation as well. It seems a little odd, and It's 2016. That's 2 years. I mean, my God, that's a long time to be waiting for the show.
Yeah, it'll be a year and a half after she's off the air that she's going to be on there, which is I agree that is a long, that's either an epic long scale vision of where this is headed, or just I don't know, that was where they had an opening in the slate.
Well, yeah, I imagine there might be a non-compete with E. That is part of that. I don't know that that's the case, but it could be something like that. It could be that they just want to take a good long time to develop this concept because they're going to need to do it differently if it's going to work on Netflix. They can't just do a standard talk show and put it up there. I mean, Netflix has said reality shows don't work for us. Talk shows don't really work for us. So they're going to have to figure out something different, something that makes us go, oh, that's something you can do on Netflix. Brian, you had a good example there, right? Like surfacing by guests. And what people like to do a lot of times is just see clips. Maybe you even just surface clips from her show, and then you can watch the full show if you're that interested. I think it is smart that they're doing the comedy special and the 4 documentaries because that will get Netflix people familiar with her. Because no disrespect to Ms. Handler, but I'm not that familiar with her work.
Yeah, no, and she had a long career, and again, it was kind of a bold, smart move for her to leave E. She had a show running for what, like 6-7 years on E by the time she left, and I think that in that strata, she was doing really well, but I agree, she was far from a household name, I think.
Yeah, never heard of her before this.
Really? No kidding?
Yeah. I'm old, man. I don't watch E.
Not
I
the
watch
demo.
Z
Yeah.
so I can sleep.
Yeah, and I don't watch cable. I don't know, but anything else we want to say about this before we move forward?
No, I think that's it. It'll be very interesting to see what Netflix comes up with, because if you go with their past track record, House of Cards was a success. You could say Hemlock Grove may not have been your thing, but it's been a success with its target demo.
Absolutely.
And I think Orange is the New Black is a success as well. That it's a little too early to tell whether the new original kids stuff is a success or not, but it doesn't seem to be a flop. So they're trying lots of different things. Good for them. Doesn't mean everything's going to work, but it'll be interesting to see if they can crack the talk show format in an on-demand, like a totally on-demand situation.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the secondary target then.
Oh, wait, I just had a thought.
Oh.
There's rumors of Netflix Live that we've heard from time to time. Could this be a live stream thing?
They have essentially like stomped on that every time it comes up, but that doesn't mean they'll finally turn around and go, and now we can say we're going to do Netflix.
Well, we wanted to do live. We just wanted to do it right.
Yeah,
Take a page from Apple's book.
Amazon rolled out a new Fire phone. That is the name of their phone. Amazon now sells their own phone, kind of like the Kindle Fire tablet. This is a phone with the Kindle Fire interface. So it really drives you into the Amazon experience. And it'll work nicely with the Fire TV. If you've got the Fire TV box, it'll sling video to it. It's also got something called Firefly, which is really meant for like using the camera to identify objects that you want to log and maybe buy on Amazon. The whole thing is really meant to make you buy stuff on Amazon. But one of the interesting things it'll do is allow you to use like a Shazam-like song recognition feature to capture the audio from something you're watching, and then it'll let you find and buy, if you want, that movie or TV show.
I just don't, I'm not saying this is a bad idea. I'm saying I just don't understand the appeal to it at all, because one of two things. First of all, with a song, I can hear a song, it gets stuck in my head, and I have to buy it so I can, hear it again. I almost never does that happen with a television show that I catch it and I'm like, oh, I gotta pay money so I can keep watching that show over and over and over again. And I don't understand it as far as the ability to tell you what you're already watching. It's like, is that a problem we have in society? Is that we watch things and don't know what we're looking at?
I know I tested that with Google now. I have a service on an Android phone where if you're watching something, it'll pop up more information about it. I was watching something on CNN, and they had some guests on it, and it recognized their voice and was able to tell me who these guests were, because I kind of got in the middle, and I got some background info. So from that instance, any kind of background stuff is probably a good idea.
If it works well that way, where let's say Kit Harington is on, and I have never watched Game of Thrones, and then I go, who is this guy? And it tells me, and then allows me to buy Game of Thrones on Amazon Prime Instant Video.
All right, I'll tell you.
That is the scenario that I am stretching to say would work.
I will tell you when this will be extraordinarily useful, and everyone is going to hate the idea until we start doing it, and then we're going to love it. I am astonished lately at how useful I have discovered my browsing history to be, which sounds like I'm leading to a joke here. But like when we're talking about what we're watching or whatever, I'll open up the YouTube history to see what random videos I've clicked on. Or it's like when I think, oh, did I take care of that thing? I'll go back to my browsing history. I'm like, oh, that's right. No, I even tweeted about it. If it's built into the OS level things, something like this that's listening all the time, hears everything that you're watching and logs it all. If you could maintain your own privacy or whatever, imagine a browsing history of your life. The ability to know, like, well, I saw an article or something like that. Imagine the ability to pick up your phone and say, what did I watch that had the guy from Game of Thrones last week? And it could contextualize that and know everything that it caught you watching. We're like, well, I was at this bar and then there was somebody on the news talking about whatever. They could tell you what that guest is, what book he just finished, why, what the quote was that you're in the middle mangling or whatever. I could see that being useful in the future, but in this embryonic phase, I don't see any point to it.
That is interesting. It will do that. Firefly has a privacy section. It says that you are in control of what is stored there. So you can go in and see it. You can delete things from it if you want. The thing is, you still have to activate it every time. It's not like it's just constantly listening. So I'm not sure if that undermines the utility of that sort of situation you're describing, but it is probably one of the better attractive features to it that I've heard described.
Well, and the problem is that it's something that have to be always on, which I think makes people feel icky.
And it's not the way it's set up now, because people would freak out if it was always on.
Yeah,
They'd be
well,
like, no.
but then again, we're getting more comfortable with that idea with the Xbox.
Let me turn it always on, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, having it on.
There was a good point that a YouTuber, a friend of mine named Marquez Brownlee, he mentioned he kind of talked about this phone, and and his puzzlement was really that everything that Amazon came up with, why should that not just be an app? Why make that a phone that no one really needs? But the app with all of this in there, and some of the apps have most of this in there already, that would be much more valuable for them to put across platforms to get to more devices so more people could buy their stuff. And it just didn't. It never made sense to have the phone. I know they had to do it, but I just don't see a use case for another phone.
I mean, playing devil's advocate, earlier we were talking about the integration of Shazam into Siri at that level to where, half the time whenever there was a song I wanted to know what it was, by the time I hit the home button, scrolled over, found Shazam, clicked it, opened it, loaded up Shazam, I caught the tail end and it was like, nope, no idea what you're talking about. Like the ability to integrate stuff at an OS level, I think is superior to a lot of app stuff. But of course, you don't want to have everything running all the time, because it affects the overall use of the phone. Tom, what is the story? What price point are they going for this? Is there
$199 subsidized 2-year contract, $299 for the 32 gig version, or 64 gig version, I think maybe. 2-year contract. So it's pretty much dead center. It's not cheap. It's not a bargain. There's lots of more affordable phones with just as good a specs out there, but it's also not the most expensive. It's right there at iPhone level, iPhone 5S level.
I guess I'm going to say that there is a value to at least completing the picture of an ecosystem. There's someone out there who has a Fire and a tablet and loves them, and this does give the third leg of that stool.
Sure.
So in that regard, even if it's not exceptional or extraordinary, I think 5 years from now you will see a strong Kindle Fire ecosystem. And I think this is just a step in that direction.
Well, and Brian, I think you nailed it when you said the reason they're not doing things like Firefly is because they won't perform as well without OS level integration. And that's why they want to do phones and Kindle Fire tablets, so they can do some of that stuff that you can't really do. Because they have no allergy to putting apps on other platforms. In fact, today they just added the first free episode feature to the iOS app for Amazon Video. So now you can watch ad-supported versions of the first episode of various shows for free as a way to kind of convince you, like, hey, if you like that one, you can buy the other ones from us. But Amazon's deal is like, yeah, we'll put the Kindle software on every platform we can find. We'll put the Amazon Video app on every platform that'll let us. They aren't ones to hoard that stuff because of what you said, Lamar. They want to be able to sell as many things as possible.
So I guess I missed the part that those first episodes free were ad supported. Do you think this opens up the possibility for a more Hulu-like experience with ad-supported
Well, it is interesting,
options?
right? I mean, you could see this as sort of a, no, this is just us, trying to suck you into buying stuff. but they're developing the technology, and it's a nice little beta testy way to do it that doesn't overload you. Maybe there is a free version of Amazon Prime down the road that has a more restricted version, which is essentially what this is. It's just very restricted because it's only first episodes.
Yeah, and they have to pay for it somehow. They still have to pay the the distributors of it. I mean, not distributors. They still have to pay, if it's Fallen Skies. They had to, they still have to pay them for the episode. So the ads help with that. But it'd be interesting if they did do it like that. I would jump on that in a minute.
You know what? I wonder if there's a different schedule of stuff they'd have to pay out for, if you make something free, and then someone puts it and adds it in their library, then you have to pay whatever the royalties are for a purchase. But if they have ads on it, I wonder if there's a different price they pay where they're like, well, they're not keeping it. They don't own it now. They're just streaming it once, so we'll pay the streaming rate instead.
Yeah, it's interesting because they also have that Kindle First thing where I think it's each month you get a free book if you're if you have an actual Kindle device, and they still have to pay the author and the publishing companies for this. I wonder if this is a similar thing where they just kind of eat the cost.
If only we had like some industry insiders who were fans of Cordkillers that could maybe, reach out to us, cordkillers@gmail.com.
If only that were possible. But unfortunately, Brian, everything has to be ad supported. You can't do stuff unless you charge directly ad supported. What you sound like you're disputing that. But
I'm just saying, you say everything.
It's a solid fact of media. You cannot do any kind of media, any kind of show.
It's again. See, you know what? For example, little show on the internet supported by 1,869 individual patrons, but throwing their hard-earned money right at the screen. Well, that's both of us because I'm talking about our show, Cordkillers, brought to you by you. Thanks, you. Man, oh man, am I loving the Patreon experience, and I'm loving the fact that this number keeps growing. And I'm not just talking about how much we make per episode. I'm talking about an army of almost 2,000 people. How many people are supporting DTNS over on your other show now?
I don't remember exact, but it's like 4,100 something.
That, to me, is the extraordinary thing. Even if you think our show, look, we understand you're used to getting all your podcasts for free, and you're also tired of hearing the same 8 ads a billion times over. Why don't you do something different? Why don't you feel like you're sticking it to the man, that you're supporting a show that's not beholden to anyone except for you? And you don't even have to give us a lot. Give us a nickel an episode, and we'll be happy.
And we won't tell you we're sponsored by Squattable System Flicks.
All right. Thanks to all of our patrons. You guys, there's benefits, and mainly it just helps us have the best time in the world. Thanks.
You guys are the best. Thank you for seeing value in the show. We really appreciate it. On to Signals Intelligence.
Yeah.
This is the section of the show where we talk about streaming services, both real and imagined. In this case, it's possibly imagined, but the Information, which is a website, has sources that say AMC, the television network that brought you Breaking Bad, that brings you Mad Men, will launch websites streaming video focused on specific categories like documentary or horror, possibly with the help of a web video startup that they've invested in called Drama Fever, which does kind of a Hulu-like experience for Korean television and movies brought over to the United States. They license them from Korean networks and studios and then get people to pay for a service to watch them here in the U.S. AMC might be coming up with their own genre-based verticals in the same vein. Kind of an interesting take. Cable television network doing genre-specific Netflix, Hulu approach.
Well, and you kind of see a lot of this. You see this constant fragmentation is the idea, is to continually specialize. That's what we saw in cable. When we went from broadcast where there's only 3 flavors of vanilla to all of a sudden a bazillion different cable channels now, so precise that you got like entire channels dedicated to just one subgenre of reality build shows or whatever. And it makes sense that you would be able to do that now that you're unrestricted by bandwidth. I would imagine their biggest problem, all of these channels have to be chomping at the bit for the chance to dive in with their own apps and build their own brands on the internet. But I assume all of them are just limited by the existing agreements, right?
Yeah, it's got to be tough to get those agreements. So it makes sense to say, if you're AMC, we've got experience licensing movies and kind of churning them over. That's how AMC started, American Movie Classics. So Lamar, if they were able to say like, hey, these are going to be great horror flicks. They won't always be the same ones, but if you're in the mood for horror, turn on this website. It's going to help you out.
Yeah, I'm all for it because when I go to Netflix, it's really all about genre. And I even like the way they set it up now where it's just not, just generic titles. I'm in the mood for a certain genre and I go for it. I'm big on sci-fi personally. So if AMC popped up some sci-fi, I'd watch it all day.
Well, right on.
Actually, that's a good point. If they had a science fiction channel that I could just pop into and just let it play, I probably would do that at certain times. All right, let's gear up. Get some gear in this here
Let's
show
have no
that does
fear of the gear.
Do not fear the gear. Friday, Mozilla developer Christian Hellman tweeted, quote, a fully open TV casting prototype device running Firefox OS, open bootloader and all, and had a little picture there of a device. Everyone got excited. Mozilla's making a Chromecast competitor. Mozilla responded by saying, this is not a Mozilla project. We do not make devices. But then they kind of hedged and said, but we are always happy for people to do things with our stuff. So GigaOM sort of split the difference and says, look, from what they can tell, Mozilla has been working closely with an unnamed partner on this particular type of project. Same way Firefox OS for phones is out there. Mozilla doesn't make any of the phones, but they work closely with the phone makers. Looks like they might be working on something like this.
Are you excited about this, Lamar?
Nah, I think I'm so happy with my Chromecast, man. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with my Apple TV. I'm happy with my Xbox. I'm happy with my PS4. I can go on and on. It's like I don't need another stick.
Well, and that's
that's
exactly what. On the one hand, I'm happy that more people are entering the marketplace. Right, that means that you have a robust market there, and I suspect that we're gonna get dongle fatigue. And have so many dang dongles. Too many dang dongles is my new children's book. And but I think what'll happen is you're going to have all this splintering, everybody jumping into the dongle game, and then there's going to be a collapse. And I think Tom is right, where it's just going to be built into TVs. There's going to be some kind of standard. At some point, they're like, I don't want to open my Firefox app and now my Chromecast app or whatever. There's going to be like a collapsing that's going to be built into monitors. The closer we can get to that whole Tony Stark, Iron Man, whatever you're on, just fling it to whatever you want to have it be on, the happier customers will be. But I think we have to go through this first.
Yeah, and I think this could prove to be nothing. Like you guys are saying, it'll just kind of fizzle out. It could be a defining moment, right? If Firefox got traction as an OS on a dongle and multiple people could make them, and the fact that it's HTML5 compatible meant that a lot of folks getting into the video market didn't have to go through some kind of API approval process with Google. As open as they are being about it, you still have to get Google's cooperation to make a Chromecast device. There might be an advantage crop up at some point. Right now, pretty much if you've got Hulu, Netflix, HBO Go, etc., you're fine. And Chromecast is adding, they've already added all the big ones there. So it's hard to see where the competition could happen, but it could.
I'll tell you
Maybe
what.
It's these AMC channels.
Here's where the competition happens, and it's going to sound ridiculous. It's the difference between taking 4 seconds to get your content on the screen versus 2 seconds to get your content on the screen. There's entire markets that exist solely by shaving off a few seconds a day. You know, I've talked about it before. I'm wearing my Pebble, which I strap on every day because at least 50 times a day I get some message, and I save myself 3 seconds each time. Yep. So by the end of the day, yeah, there we go. At the end of the day, you know, I've saved entire minutes. And if we can make it, like, think about how many things you don't bother to do just because it requires taking out your phone and pressing a button or whatever. The faster they can make that, the happier I think people would be. And I think they'll maybe even I'd pay double. The Chromecast is so cheap that if you told me it loaded in 1 second instead of 5, I would pay twice as much, 3 times as much for the faster dongle.
I need to get a work on this to sell you one. Sheesh. You pay double? Awesome.
You just show up at my house. You're like, I'll just press the button, man. I'll put it on. Whatever you need, man.
It's called the Lamar dongle.
That's right.
There you go.
I will just dongle around your house until you're ready for me to change the channel for you.
Just feed me. I'm good.
You know what, though? You gave me the idea for this, Brian. What we want is ease, right? So what do you have to do with Chromecast? You have to find the website or the app, and then you have to press the cast button. And what if Firefox OS's advantage is, hey, we're open, right? We're open platform. So we can easily index everybody out there. It doesn't even matter if you're on board. If you've developed for it, we'll have a website where you can, if you have the Firefox OS powered dongle, you just put in what you want to watch and you press play and we automatically cast it and it starts playing.
Yeah. I'll tell you where else there's a market is not only by saving a few seconds, but also eliminating a second action. For example, most of the time, the kids are watching the Xbox, and if I do want to cast something, I have to do the one thing and then find the remote to switch it over to the other. If there's some kind of functionality where they're able to work out with Samsung or whatever, something where it recognizes the input starts on something and flips over immediately to it, that would be huge as well. I think we're entering the age where people are going to realize there's a massive value to creating a secret, Avengers club of everything that plays nice with each other to, I don't know, to make it easy for me to be lazy.
Historically, we go through that, right? We have Commodore 64s and Ataris and televisions, and then we collapse down into Windows.
Right.
And then we branch out into, devices again that do specialized things, and then we come back in to various operating systems. We're in a system right now of apps. And that's going to want to collapse back down into something that plays along nice with each other.
Oh, think about that. You could have an entire language between apps that all kind of spoke like such and such compatible, whether it's an Android app or an iOS app or multiple apps on your system. You click something on one app and it just jumps and opens up the other app. All that stuff.
Apple's wanting to do that within their operating system. Firefox, Mozilla, open source, wants to do that with everything.
You
not
realize
locked into any particular
we're on
system.
planet Earth, right? Yeah, everybody getting along.
That won't stay getting along, Lamar. But
when there's a buck to be made, I think that they come together.
Exactly. We do go through those cycles.
Okay.
Speaking of a buck to be made, I'd like to make a buck. Actually, I don't even care about a buck. 99 cents is all I ask for our new Tech History July Kindle single, illustrated by Scott Johnson. I actually only get 49.5 cents because I split it with Scott. Well, actually, Amazon takes a big cut of it. But anyway, the point is,
you get 16 cents from each of these, to be honest.
If you want a look at everything that happened in July in tech history, broken down by day, and some lovely art from Scott Johnson right there on your Kindle app and or Kindle device. Go check it out, tommerrittbooks.com. We actually have a bunch of other months. We've been doing this since November, once every month, so you can go back and look at the old ones too.
Man, it almost feels like this would be a really good scheme to secretly be working on a really big book by releasing all these singles. I mean, I'm just saying hypothetically. That just seems like that'd be a good idea.
You know what? We're only 3 months. That's a really... What? Don't talk later.
Okay, that's great.
Time for under surveillance.
I'm stealing this idea.
Under surveillance is the section of the show where we talk about things you can watch, whether it's on television or on your phone or whatever. Couple of things to mention here, real quickly. Breaking Bad now available in Netflix in 4K for both of you that have 4K compatible television.
And do we have any confirmation on what the actual throughput is for that 4K? Because, I mean, theoretically, we could broadcast at 4K on the same, stream and just have a very high resolution with terrible compression. Do we have any idea of what the megabits? I need to know the megabits.
Oh, you asked me this when I had it on Current Geek on Friday. I think
I'm
it's
sorry.
3870, but that's wrong.
All right, somebody will have it in the chat.
Give me a second and I can find it, because yes, we do know.
Okay.
I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Well, while he's looking it up, let's talk about me never seeing Breaking Bad. I watched the first 3 episodes, and I couldn't get into it. But I will give it a shot if I get a 4K TV, which I'm thinking about getting, just because. Why not?
Which 4K TV are you looking at?
I like Samsung, but I have a Vizio now. And Vizio is coming up with some really good stuff this year.
Can I confess something? I feel so embarrassed to even admit this. I'm really kind of taken by the curved television.
No, really?
Yes,
no, I am too.
Kind of
I am
landscape
too.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, they've got it in the interoperable master format. Sony agreed to an early subset of that, and they're streaming in the 4K HEVC H.265 decoding.
TV's Egon claims that's 20 megabits down. Wow, that's extraordinary.
Wow.
If that's the case,
It's quite a large file. And the thing is, it doesn't. I mean, I think because they recorded in the IMF that it's emerging SMTPE spec, it should play on more TVs. I think that's what they're saying, is that this will play on more than just the Sony TVs. But that's a problem with early 4K TVs as well, is that certain things that are 4K don't play on every 4K TV out there,
right?
Until they standardize. But that's getting into way more detail than I was prepared to talk about. I just wanted to mention
I'm sorry for hitting you with that out of
House
nowhere.
of Cards, nature documentaries, and Breaking Bad.
Now, here's the thing. Does it make, if you were able to get 4K but you didn't have a 4K TV, does it make your 1080p look better? Or does it just never send you the signal?
No. I'm pretty sure you have to have compliant hardware.
Okay.
The opposite is true. If you have a 4K TV and you watch something 1080p, sometimes it'll be able to upscale it and make the 1080p signal look better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But the main thing under surveillance here is Sense8 from the Wachowski siblings and J. Michael Straczynski finally released some details. This is another show coming to Netflix. It follows 8 characters around the world who, in the aftermath of a tragic death, find themselves linked to each other mentally and emotionally. So it's sci-fi-ish. It definitely seems like it's Netflix's attempt to do a Lost. In fact, Naveen Andrews from Lost is in it, along with Daryl Hannah, Brian J. Smith from Stargate Universe, Tuppence Middleton, who was in Jupiter Ascending, an Indian actress named Tina Desai, South Korean actress named Duna Bay, German actor Mike Rimmelt, and Mexican actors Alfonso Herrera and Erendira Ibarra. They're filming in Chicago, San Francisco, London, Iceland, Seoul, Mumbai, Berlin, Mexico
Holy
City,
cow.
and Nairobi.
Wow. That's like some Game of Thrones level production.
I know. Now,
that.
here's the thing. I love, I can't even say his name, Straczynski. I mean, even from, I believe, Babylon 5, because he has such a small, tiny budget. He created, to me, a really great show. So now it looks like he almost has an unlimited budget. I can't wait to see what he does.
Well, and what's funny is the first comment I saw under this story was, this could either be the best things about Babylon 5 with the best things from the Matrix, or it could be the worst things about Babylon 5 with the worst things of the Matrix. I actually am fairly bullish on this because number one, the reason, and it's a petty reason, and I apologize that I haven't been able to get in Babylon 5, is the production values are just too dated and poor, and I won't give it its due, and I'm a bad person for having done that. Likewise, you hear people keep dinging the Wachowskis for coming up with material that's too dense for movies. Cloud Atlas was too long, too complicated, too much stuff. Even as they went through the rest of the Matrix series, they had to come out with the Animatrix, these supplementary things, and anyway, the idea that they could have a movie level production budget in a long format, possibly Game of Thrones level production setup, I think I'm highly optimistic for it.
Yeah. I like the idea that there are 8 characters around the world, and we're actually going to see them around the world, not just like in the blue screen set with the Indian skyline keyed in behind them. Is it time for Frontlines, Brian?
It certainly is.
Well, then let's get started.
Frontlines!
All right, man. Frontlines, we got 60 seconds for each of these stories. Hey, man, Google has not even yet bought Twitch, which was hotly rumored, but the two companies are cooperating very closely. They're I guess they're passing notes to each other in homeroom. Today, a new live annotations feature for YouTube lets game broadcasters add a real-time notification to their YouTube videos when they're live on Twitch. Now, was there specifics explaining what this looked like to the end user?
I did not see that.
Yeah,
no, I have not seen a demonstration, but it's similar to what you can do when you go live on Twitch and say notify Twitter, notify Facebook. This will notify YouTube. And the annotations that come up in YouTube now are those little words that come up on the screen.
So I guess they're in the middle of watching, a Johnny Cash music video from 1960, whatever, and all of a sudden it's just an annotation pops up saying hey, by the way, Brian's live right now. Cool.
Yeah, I think that's what annotations are, right, Lamar?
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, so I would assume it's something like that.
That's awesome, then.
An Asian language TV station in the San Francisco area called KTSF has incorporated Nielsen's mobile measurement technology in its iOS app. Same soon for Android, meaning smartphone and tablet users will count in their ratings. In other words, an independent over-the-air broadcaster realized, hey, we should count all the eyeballs.
Man, okay, and we've talked about this before. There's movements from the Nielsen's to try to capture stuff, but the complication is it only matters if they're watching the same ads at the same times. Small moves, guys. Small moves, stepping in the right direction. Lamar, are you excited about any of this stuff? Yeah, I figured.
It's not exciting for the consumer yet, but it's a really important step if you want to be able to watch what you want, where you want, for somebody like this to go, I'm going to pioneer putting my signal wherever the audience is, because once they show it can be done, more people will do it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, AMC's already renewed Breaking Bad spinoff Better Call Saul for a second season, even though
What?
the first
Did I miss
hasn't
the
even
first season,
aired?
Brian?
No. We did see this. It says here, plus the first season has been delayed until the first quarter of 2015, so I guess it's good news and less good news. We saw a similar thing happen with House of Cards. Did they buy 2 seasons at the same time for House of Cards, or did they renew?
I believe that was what they did with House of Cards, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So it's not unheard of to jump all the way in, and of course, especially coming on the heels of Breaking Bad, using a lot of the same talent, you got to figure they know they have money in the bank. But I got to tell you, I'm weirded out by this because of all the characters to make a spinoff show for Breaking Bad, the living cartoon was not the one that I would have thought of.
I want to see Saul more. I get that. But I have the same fear of, but what kind of story are we going to see? Saul was an interlude, right? He was a fun break in the drama.
Yeah.
Can that sustain over a whole episode? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe Lamar will like it better that way.
A federal judge rejected Viacom's motion to dismiss an antitrust lawsuit brought by Cablevision. Viacom, like most network operators, requires cable companies to carry like a dozen channels if they want to get their 4 most popular ones. Cablevision claims this is anti-competitive behavior. That part of the lawsuit still has to be determined. But Lamar, do you think it is?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's not they're not bullying them, but they're providing them a package, because who's gonna want? I mean, I was gonna say who wants a smaller package. Most of us do want a smaller package. That's why we're here. That was a silly thing to say. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on it. It sounds very weird.
I mean, the question is it anti-competitive? And I guess Viacom wanted to have the antitrust lawsuit dismissed out of hand, but the judge is rejecting that, saying like, no, there might be something to this. Am I getting that right?
That's pretty much right. The judge says we have to do the trial, but you can't just say no.
Yeah. Speaking of laws and courts and whatnot, the Supreme Court recesses at the end of June, so we can expect to hear a decision for the Aereo case by the end of this week. Is it already upon us? Is this already? We've decided this is what our #1 story will be next week? Schedule?
Probably, yeah, unless they don't announce an opinion, which would be even a bigger story.
Yeah. Schedule for announcement of opinions has been released for Wednesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. There's also the option of scheduling on Monday, June 30th. What's your latest guess on this, Tom?
I think it's going to go against Aereo. I really do. And I think we'd be hearing more kvetching from certain sectors if it wasn't, especially CBS, Les Moonves. He always talks.
Lamar?
I try to be positive. I love the service. I'm hoping they win. I'm going for Aereo.
Well, and I'm with Tom. I actually think it's going to come down against them, and I think they're wrong, and I think it's a bad thing for consumers if they do. But the best we can hope for is, I think, some kind of like minor decision of ruling on exactly some technicality.
And the Chromecast has been great for YouTube videos unless they're live like Cordkillers is on Monday afternoons. You could do that from your desktop, but you couldn't from your devices like your tablet or your phone until now. Behold, Chromecast owners can now stream live video streams from Android and iOS YouTube apps.
Finally.
Hooray!
Yeah, by the way, I know some people are watching us live on their Chromecast right now, and I'd love to, I think Ken from Chicago is, I don't know. Yeah, no, I hope somebody just made a straw poll that says who's right, Tom or Brian. I don't even know what it's about. But 420 people have voted.
I think it's been around forever.
And it's an old one. Okay, but everyone agrees you're right.
I'm ahead already by there's 420 votes.
That's amazing. Sorry. It's a safe bet in general.
I think that's a classic in the chat room now.
Right on.
Chromecast live. I'm all for it. Yay.
Yeah,
Let's
that's
move
good.
on
to the movie draft.
To the movie draft. things finally changed. I thought this was going to happen earlier on, Brian Brushwood, but the morning stream finally nudged ahead thanks on the strength of 22 Jump Street.
Oh my gosh, you're right. And I guess also Amtrekker is closing the gap right now. The difference between number 1, number 2, and number 3 is less than $40 million. There's less than a 10% difference between all of our top 3 competitors. And, I mean, this is anyone's game because also this week we have coming out Transformers Age of Extinction. Right now, Night Attack, we're in last place. We have 2 movies left, but we're at $145 million. I think there's every probability that this is going to make well over $300 million. That'll all of a sudden make it a 4-way race.
Yeah, that puts you right back in it.
Yeah. God's Money Bags continues to squeeze money out
I think God's Money Bags is done, though. All they have left is Lucy. Even if they get another $100 million out of How to Train Your Dragon 2, which I don't think they will,
no,
there's still only 361, and that's not enough.
Yeah, no, they're at 261, Tom.
No, I said even if they get another 100 from How
to
Train Your Dragon, that would only put them at 361.
Yeah, I'm calling it for God's Money Bags. I'm going to say Night Attack has an outside chance.
Yeah,
but
it all depends on Transformers for you guys.
Yes, and Transformers needs to have a boost over historical Transformer levels.
And Slash Film, it all depends on Guardians of the Galaxy. That could like loft them up because they still have 3 other films.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a nail biter for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think that we're all going to be super close. I think that that we will be probably in 3rd or 4th place. And if Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the very end turns out to, I mean, it could be a $50 million movie, it could be a $120 million movie, and that would decide the draft.
Or Transformers could just suck this week because we've had lots of surprise sucking, and that could ruin you. I'm not saying I want that to happen, but
it definitely could. That's
Lamar, what are your feelings on Transformers Age of Extinction?
Oh, I was hoping you weren't going to ask me that. Okay. Here's the thing. If you go into the movie with the right frame of mind, it's probably just going to be explosions and garbage, you'll enjoy it. And I think a lot of people by now understand is what the Transformers series are. So I think it's going to do very well because people now understand there will be no storyline. There will just be explosions and dinosaurs that are made of metal.
You know, I'd hate to say it, but I think you're 100% right. I think that the story will be nothing to speak of, but I do think that they're trading up in star power with Mark Wahlberg. I think that that's going to, if it does well, it's going to be dinosaurs and Mark Wahlberg, and that's all it takes, apparently.
And let me tell you, the week after Transformers, the movie of the summer, Tammy, is coming out. It's a hilarious comedy.
Hang on, disclosures.
Well, okay, yeah, it's owned by Team DTNS, but you know, I don't think anyone should miss that movie.
Yeah, right after that, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I'll tell you what, man, Amtrekker.
Oh, that's gonna be a big one.
Amtrekker might win it if Dawn of the Planet of the Apes does $100 million.
If everything else goes badly and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes does better than expected, they could definitely win it.
Oh, so curious.
Yeah. It's good. It's anybody's ball game except maybe Will and Father Robert.
Yeah. Hey man, you want to check what's on screen?
Let's do.
I feel like we need to add some sound effects. That's not the most dramatic sound effect we have in the entire show.
Bum bum. Yeah.
What are you watching?
I actually been watching a lot of the World Cup. Which is you can get over the air here in the U.S. Through Univision and even on ABC on the weekends sometimes. Orphan Black had their season finale. It was phenomenal, Brian.
I can't wait to start that.
They outdid themselves with this season.
Dude, I am so excited. Like, I feel like there's an awesome gift-wrapped gem waiting for me to dive in. And we got homework to do. We're going to talk about in spoiler in time both Silicon Valley and Orange is the New Black, right?
Yeah, and I've got another episode of The Shield to cover.
Okay. And then
so that's that. I'm thinking you asked me the other week like if I could assign you a show, and I hesitated with Orphan Black because I hadn't finished the season and it's only had 2 seasons. But I more and more I think about it. That's the one that I feel most confident you'll enjoy.
God, that's great. Awesome. Anything else for you?
No, that's it. Everything else will be covered in spoiler in time.
What about you, Lamar?
I watched the Falling Sky season premiere, the show that Tom abandoned like a sinner in season 1.
I fell from the
shame-
skies.
Yeah, shame on you. It's such, it's such a good show. And it came on like a week earlier on Amazon for free, so that was nice. But it premiered yesterday, so I got a chance to see that. I love seeing the old cast. It is getting a little bit repetitive with now we have new aliens that have taken over the Earth, and my question is, why haven't they killed this group yet? This group survives out of all the humans, but it's interesting to follow them along. So I'm enjoying that. There was a movie that I accidentally found on iTunes called The Machine. It's from the UK. It's very Blade Runner, like where it involves an android that is come to life, and they're deciding is it really alive, and it should be used for military purposes. Really good movie. It was just 99 cents. So I if it's still there, rent that. It's a very, very good sci-fi movie. The kid in me has been watching some Phineas and Ferb.
Oh, so good. Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah.
Don't even blame that on the kid. That the adult in all of us should be watching all of those.
It's such a good. It's such a good series. And dude, of all things this weekend, I have been watching a crap ton of Twitch. I never thought I would be into watching people play video games. There's this one couple that was doing a Mario Kart marathon. I sat there 3 hours and watched them play. The Marvel Heroes 2015 that just came out, watching some of that, and then the UFC game. So I am starting to see, like, even if my cable, like I talked about last time, is another $20-$30, it's not really worth it to get rid of. I kind of don't need it. Twitch and YouTube and just having all these other resources, like, why do I have cable?
I have a new theory about the success of Twitch, and I suspect that structurally there's something people like, and part of the reason a lot of people keep cable on, this is my parents for sure, they love having the TV on in the background. They love that noise. They love that if something happens, you break in. My dad has his goofy Fox News on. Mom has her Hallmark Channel, Columbo Mysteries or whatever. And we don't have that in a whole world of on-appointment viewing that we love about, on demand and only watching stuff on purpose. There's not so many types of content that will just continue to be on, where it's okay to walk away and you can come back and know where you are. But video games satisfy that. And when you have a dynamic character who you kind of like him and he's struggling to get through stuff, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was doing. I was watching a Street Fighter marathon for like 3 or 4 hours as background noise as I was catching up on some work. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yep. Brian, what's been gracing your screen?
I caught half of something that I started for my daughter today on Netflix. There was a documentary called Dear Mr. Watterson, and it was about Calvin and Hobbes. And I sat and watched the first like 20 or 30 minutes with her, and then got annoyed because it was just a giant love letter to like, and why do you like Calvin and Hobbes? And then there's way too much of people saying like, oh, and I remember there was one, and on the third panel it said, and I was like, come on. And so I left it to do some errands. But when I came back, apparently a big chunk of it was talking about why, and he's never on it. It's just interviews with other cartoonists and people who were in the know, but there's talks about why he decided to drop off the face of the earth, how the licensing rights went, and at what point, and how much money he gave up. Like apparently, his deal with the syndicators was 50-50, and the syndicators had the actual authority to do licensing deals without his approval if they wanted. They just had to send him 50%, and they're like, this is $400 million that we're sitting on. But we have to decide if we want to go to war with one of the most beloved creators of cartoons. And so they didn't do it. And anyway, there's some interesting stuff in there. It might be worth people checking out. I still haven't seen the whole thing. But what I watched and fell in love with was Valve just released a new Team Fortress video called Expiration Date. Now, if you have seen any of these, they've got these meet the engineer, meet the medic, meet the scout, very cute vignettes. The one they had about the spy was really good. They've gotten longer and more detailed lately. This is a 15-minute movie with its own narrative arc, with a love interest, in this case they find out that they all have 3 days to live because they've been using the teleporters that apparently riddles things with tumors. I loved it. I loved this thing, and I want to know what people who don't play Team Fortress 2 think of them. It's called Expiration Date on Team Fortress on YouTube. Somebody out there watch it and send in an email at cordkillers@gmail.com.
You know, I just realized that the other week when you said you forgot to look at your YouTube history for things you were watching, I looked through that as well. A lot of John Oliver clips that I've been looking at rather than watching the whole thing. The Brian Williams Baby Got Back rap.
Oh, that was good.
Was huge. If guys said stuff straight people, if gay guys said stuff straight people say, had a second episode.
I'm not familiar with this franchise.
Very short but very hilarious.
I'm already in love though.
And the Royal, Almost Royal, full episode of the episode 1 off of BBC America is available for streaming for anybody on YouTube. Also, that Lamar Wilson guy had a Google Buys Dropcam video that was in my history. It's pretty good.
Oh, stop it!
You should check out that channel.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to some dispatches from the front.
Heck yeah.
Or the back. You don't care. Picky. First one comes from Steven, who says, I have taken your chicken challenge and I contacted my cable company. I have IMON cable in my area. And when I contacted them to cut the cord, the best they could give me was $20 off my bill. So I told them to shut it off. Now I'm stuck with the dilemma of what over-the-air antenna to get. Do you have any suggestions?
Which, by the way, that was me. I did not mean, I thought I was taking the chicken challenge, and then I just got so enraged that I shut it off as well. So I don't blame you. They could be a bear to work with. I ended up getting the Leaf, and of course, like if you get a Tableau, that's got an antenna built in with it. Do you have a Leaf
it's packaged. It's sold with one. It's not built in, though.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sold with an antenna.
Leaf is great.
Yeah, right.
Now, did you end up with a Leaf, Lamar? I thought you ended up with something else.
No, I mean, the Leaf was trying to work, but it's just I'm downtown surrounded by buildings. So it's funny. I tried some cheap RCA one from Target, and that got more channels than the Leaf did.
Oh, wow.
But it was still missing a couple. It was flaky, so I couldn't keep it. I mean, I'm high up enough. It's just, the signal can't get through all the buildings.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
I use a Leaf myself, and it works fantastic.
It's a nice thin antenna.
So I got an email that I hesitate to read here, Tom, and I'm going to read it anyway.
All right.
Brandon says, so I recently finished The Shield, the latest season of Game of Thrones, and season 2 of Orange is the New Black. I was wondering if you guys let season finales ruin a season or a show for you. He says he didn't like the way The Shield ended, and he really didn't like the way Orange ended.
Does he know those are fighting words to you? Carry on. Sorry.
Well, okay, yes, exactly. He says, I know a few people refuse to call The Wire the best show ever just because season side had a bad finale, but doesn't stop people from recommending The Sopranos, because I guess Sopranos also had a controversial finale. He says, where do you guys draw the line at how much one final episode impacts the whole series? I got to tell you, usually for this kind of thing, I would save my response for on the show, but I actually wrote him back directly saying, number 1, you're crazy. The Shield ends completely awesome. So much better than Breaking Bad. Number 2, it probably shouldn't matter how it ends. Like I loved Battlestar Galactica and Lost, even though they ended with controversial and widely panned endings. However, I'm not even beginning Dexter because I watched the fan response to the way Dexter ended. So I'm a hypocrite is my answer.
Well, and I would say watch Dexter. Just don't have the idea in mind that it's going to end well. Because there's some really, really good storylines, especially in those early seasons, that are totally worth taking your time to watch. But that's me answering his question, which is I don't let bad endings ruin a series for me. And Dexter's ending was awful, but I still like the series.
Lamar?
I let him ruin it. I do. Walking Dead did it for me. Like I'm trying to go back and finish the season 4. Is it on? Whatever, but it was just the way they ended the middle of the season was so bad. I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't invest any more time. So it's been months. I haven't touched the series at all.
Yeah, I feel like people put way higher expectations on a season finale, right, and probably rightly so, because it's the culmination of the story. The way they do a book ending. Sometimes people are like, yeah, I really like that book, but I didn't like the way it ended. It's really hard to end something well. It's so I forgive that. Battlestar Galactica, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great example too, where I did not like that ending, but I still love that show.
Yeah. I was so thankful for the experience. It didn't matter.
Joe wrote in and said, you did it. When you read my email about the spoiler and time codes, you kind of just mixed it in with the other guy's chapter request, but you added the time codes. I'm stoked. I just remembered I'm only a patron of DTNS, not Cordkillers. He's fixed that. Since then. We also got an email from Tom Mango who said time codes in the spoiler and time show notes is the best. Thank you. I think I was responding to a guy on Twitter when I threw it out there as well. So a bunch of people wanted this. I'm glad people are liking it.
Yeah, apparently it was a bigger deal than we thought, the ability to gracefully jump over the individual Cordkillers. And for that, we have to give a special thank you to Zach Holder for making that happen, and hopefully
well done,
we'll continue to get that. Mike writes us saying, hey guys, really enjoyed the show. Just wanted to add a couple of thoughts regarding this week's podcast. He means last week's. One, Netflix does not actually own the syndication rights for any of their originals. The studios behind them do. MRC owns House of Cards and Hemlock Grove. Lionsgate owns Orange is the New Black. 20th Century Fox owns Arrested Development. When they show up on linear cable in international market and in the future domestically, it's these studios selling the rights, not Netflix. Two, worth noting that before the PlayStation TV, Powers was previously in development at FX. They even shot a pilot back in 2011. He gives a link to it. So in essence, an upstart network, PlayStation TV, will be trying to exceed where one of the very best networks, FX, couldn't. That's a tough task. Anyway, trying to be helpful. Mike, I will point out that FX did exactly that, taking troubled projects that couldn't find a home at HBO, and it worked out extremely well with projects like The Shield.
Yeah, I would say it's harsh to say trying to succeed where one of the very best networks couldn't. It's a much different situation saying they didn't greenlight a show or bring it out of development than to say the show was tried and didn't work. They might not have brought it out of development because it may not have filled the slot that they needed, right? When a network is programming, they're still programming for time slots. They're still programming for demos. And if they're looking at it and they're saying, you know, this is going to be coming in off of a show of people who aren't going to like it, and we don't have the advertisers that really want this demo that we think it's going to do well, they might think the show is perfectly good, but they haven't figured out how to fit it into their schedule. Well, PlayStation TV doesn't have to worry about that. And Netflix doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's one of the weird things is that somebody else wrote in, like, when will people producing content realize that all the eyeballs should count? And one of the bitter truths you have to accept is that there's no benefit to the studio for having a show have 1 million eyeballs or 1 billion eyeballs. All that matters is how many Nielsen counted advertising views, impressions were made, unless you're playing a different game than everyone else. FX is playing that game, which means that's all that matters is, will this get the eyeballs? Can we sell the right kinds of soap with this? And then meanwhile, the fact that Powers is going over to a fundamentally different network, you know, with PlayStation, all of a sudden there is a play where they would love it if the #1 headlines were, the best show you're not watching is on your video game system. You know, that's
we don't care if you use soap.
Exactly. And you know, HBO did the same thing where it's like they said, we don't care about numbers. We care about Emmy buzz. We care about being the best television on television. So good that we're going to call it not television. So it's like the fact that Powers is being moved to a different place where quality matters much, much more than the ability to move soap, I think could be a very good thing. What about you,
Lamar?
Lamar?
It's not about when will they realize it. It's about when will the business model shift. And the business, we're watching it shift. That's what this show's all about.
Absolutely.
No comment from me. You did it.
Way to go, jerk.
hey, thanks, buddy.
Hey, man, where can people see more of you, Lamar?
You know, right now I'm putting on a slew of videos on my own YouTube channel at youtube.com/Lamar Wilson. They're all tech related. They're fun, lighthearted. I did a top 5 reasons why Apple chose Kobe Bryant for the iWatch versus LeBron. It's hilarious. Came out today. I'm saying my own video is hilarious. That's terrible. And I'm always doing work for Mashable. I'll be doing YouTube Weekly coming out tomorrow. You can check that out at Mashable.com. I just work hard, man. I love what I do.
Straight up hustling, man. Thank you so much for slumming with us. And of course, you're welcome to come back anytime. If you guys want to chime in, I guess write us at cordkillers.com. There's a little feedback button, or cordkillers@gmail.com.
You can find us live on diamondclub.tv every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, or available by podcast any damn time you want. Just subscribe at cordkillers.com. We'll see you next week.
Bye, guys. Love you. Hey, Tom, we got an extra special bonus this week. Tell me about it.
Yeah, a woman named Christy Kate out in New York was like, hey, would you guys want me to, like, do a segment for you? And I was like, yeah, sure.
And dare you.
sounds awesome.
No, and by the way, if anybody wants to be a contributing editor, if there's something that you're passionate about, if there's a product that you think fits into the Cordkillers story, reach out to us and let us know. But we thought we would try out kind of our first in the field report from someone.
Yeah, just one note on this. She's recommending music docs because she's into the music scene in New York. So these are great music documentaries that are on Netflix. Although one of them, she found out after she recorded this, Jazz, won't be available on Netflix after July 1st. So if you're watching this after July 1st, don't get mad.
Hustle.
It's not her fault.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, Christy.
Hi Tom, hi Brian, and hello chat room. So guys, when you go to Netflix and you type music documentary into the search box, what you often get is just kind of weirdness. Netflix doesn't seem to really know what a music documentary is and would just as soon send you away to watch something like High School Musical 3. So I've done the work for you. I've dug around and found some music documentaries on Netflix that I think are actually worth your time. We're going to start with Kings of Leon now. They're headlining Lollapalooza this year, but this band was not always on stages so big and cool. Tallahena Sky tells their story through several different lenses: the 10 uneven years before they first broke in the US, what their life is like back in Tennessee, and of course where they really stand out, which is on stage. I think it's the contrasts that make this one interesting. One shot, they're rocking out in front of thousands of fans, and then right in the next scene, they're in a random backyard somewhere playing horseshoes with their Uncle Cleo and probably wishing they were back on tour. This next film kind of went on tour itself. It was screened at a ton of music festivals, including South by Southwest in Brian's hometown of Austin. It's called Upside Down: The Creation Record Story, and it chronicles the history of the British record label that brought us bands like Swerve Driver, the Boo Radleys, and Oasis. Now, the behind-the-scenes stuff on this one is fun to watch, but what I found even cooler was the story of Alan McGee, who built this independent label from the ground up. Next, you probably remember Ken Burns and his epic PBS war documentary, The Civil War. Well, now, Burns is back with Jazz, a 19-hour miniseries that he co-produced with Wynton Marsalis, and it's great. Burns covers jazz up to about 1970, so you get all the traditional stuff: Louis Armstrong, Charlie Parker, Billie Holiday, all the elder statesmen and women who set the foundations for today's modern jazz. It's very cool. Shut Up and Play the Hits is next. This is a documentary on alt dance band LCD Soundsystem, and it's a strange one because it doesn't really chronicle the band, it chronicles their breakup. Their frontman James Murphy decided that they should depart with a bang, so they booked Madison Square Garden, played a massive 4-hour concert, recorded the whole thing, and then followed Murphy back to his apartment, where he just kind of wandered around looking shell-shocked, making coffee, and probably wondering what he'd just done to the band he'd been in for so many years. Finally, my favorite on this list. There are so many shows about the Beatles, it's true, but this one is really different. It's called Good Old Frida, and it's the story of the Beatles secretary, Frida Kelly. She was a Beatles fan, and she went to something like 200 shows before the manager finally picked her out to work in the Beatles office. Soon she was running the Beatles fan club, hanging out with them, and they treated her like a little sister, and she would get rides home from the office from George Harrison. She just has so many amazing stories. This is also one of the few films that the Beatles have actually endorsed, and it's the first indie film to include original Beatles recordings, so that's cool as well. All these films are streaming now on Netflix. I'm Christy Cates for Cordkillers. You can find me at ChristyCates.com, at Christy Cates on Twitter, and over at Pixis Magazine. Thanks, guys.